Ignore him. He's old and tired. My daughter had said those exact words last month to a colleague who'd asked who I was. She hadn't realized I'd heard. Or maybe she had. Maybe it didn't matter anymore. Tonight would be different, though. Tonight, I'm supposed to celebrate her 30th birthday at some glass tower in the Gold Coast with an invitation sent by her assistant, not her. Tonight, my daughter's mentor, her professional inspiration, as she called him on LinkedIn, the governor of Illinois, would be there. But tonight, the silence I've kept might finally run out of time. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments section what time it is where you're watching this.
I haven't heard my daughter truly laugh in 3 years. Not the polished chuckle she saves for networking events, not that careful smile she gives donors at her firm's galas in downtown Chicago. I mean the real thing, the kind of laugh that used to shake her whole body when I'd push her on the swings at Lincoln Park, back when my presence in her life still meant something. Tonight, I'm supposed to celebrate her 30th birthday at some glass tower in the Gold Coast. The invitation came from her assistant, not Madison herself. Her assistant, a 22-year-old named Bethany who CC'd me on an Outlook calendar invite like I was just another LinkedIn connection. Cocktail attire required. I'm standing in my studio apartment in Pilsen, ironing the same Walmart suit I've worn to every major event in Madison's life for the past decade. The iron hisses against a stubborn wrinkle near the collar. My hand trembles slightly. Just a tremor, nothing serious. Started about 2 years ago. The doctor at the community clinic said it was stress. Stress. That's the clinical term for watching your daughter become someone you don't recognize. I remember her Yale Law graduation like it was yesterday. She'd walked across that stage in New Haven with her head high, diploma in hand, already looking like she belonged in boardrooms and courtrooms. When she hugged me afterward, it lasted exactly 2 seconds. I counted. Then she turned to her classmates for photos. "Dad, can you move? You're blocking the shot." Not cruel, just efficient, like I was furniture that needed rearranging. She wore Prada that day. I wore this suit. My phone buzzes. Bethany again. "Confirming your arrival by 7 p.m. Governor Hayes will be delivering remarks at 8:30. Please be punctual." Governor Hayes. Madison's mentor, the man's career she studies like scripture, whose political connections she spent 5 years cultivating. She calls him her professional inspiration on every interview, every podcast, every LinkedIn post about breaking barriers in Illinois politics. I've never told her I know him too. I set down the iron and glance at the shoebox under my bed. Inside, buried beneath 20 years of sacrifice, receipts for her private tutors when I dropped out of Northwestern, the second mortgage on a house I lost, medical bills for my mother's final year that I ignored so Madison wouldn't drown in student debt, are 3 letters. Cream envelopes, embossed seal from Springfield. From him. I've never opened them. I don't need to. I know what they say, or at least I know what they represent. They're tied to a choice I made 23 years ago, in a hospital corridor, under fluorescent lights that made everything feel like a bad dream. I signed papers that night, papers that promised my silence in exchange for Madison's future. Some sacrifices aren't meant to be named out loud. I button my collar and catch my reflection in the bathroom mirror. Gray has colonized my temples. Deep lines map my face like the routes of buses I've taken across Chicago for 20 years, working 3 jobs so she'd never have to. I look old. I look tired. Last month, I overheard Madison tell a colleague exactly that. Ignore him. He's old and tired. I didn't know she was standing right behind her. Or maybe she did. Maybe it doesn't matter anymore. I pocket my phone and head for the door, leaving the shoebox where it belongs, under the bed, in the dark, with all the other things we pretend don't exist. Tonight, the governor will be there. And tonight, I think, the silence I've kept for 23 years might finally run out of time.
The L train rattles beneath me as I head north toward the Gold Coast. Through the smudged window, Chicago blurs past. Neighborhoods I've worked in, streets I've walked when the bus fare was too much to spare. My hand tremors again as I grip the pole. A woman across from me notices, then looks away. People always do. I wonder if Madison remembers the apartment we lived in when she was 7. 2 rooms in Bridgeport, walls so thin we could hear our neighbor's television through the plaster. She'd wanted a desk for homework. I built one from milk crates and a door I found in an alley. She'd called it her castle table. That was before Northwestern, before I had a choice to make. I was 3 semesters from finishing my engineering degree when Madison got accepted into the magnet school program at Lincoln Park High. Full scholarship, except it wasn't really full. There were fees, lab costs, travel expenses for the academic decathlon team, a laptop that wasn't optional. The math was simple. Brutal, but simple. I withdrew from Northwestern on a Tuesday. Started my second job that Friday, overnight security at a warehouse in Cicero. I told Madison I'd graduated early. She was 13. She believed me. By the time she started applying to colleges, I was working 3 jobs. Days at the print shop in Bucktown, nights doing security, weekends cleaning office buildings in the Loop. I'd sleep in 40-minute intervals on the Blue Line between shifts, my toolbox as a pillow. Madison got into Yale with a partial scholarship. Partial, that word felt like a joke. I took out the second mortgage on the house, the small bungalow in McKinley Park that had been my mother's, the one with the garden Madison used to play in, where she'd make potions from mud and dandelion stems. The bank loan officer looked at me like I was insane. "Mr. Morrison, at your income level, this is... just tell me where to sign." I signed. For 4 years, I sent checks to New Haven every month. Madison thought her grants covered everything. I made sure she thought that. She'd call me from the library, stressed about contract law, and I'd tell her, "Focus on school. Money's handled." It was handled. Barely, but handled. Then my mother got sick. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The kind that moves fast, that doesn't wait for you to catch your breath or figure out insurance networks. Experimental treatments weren't covered. Hospice care wasn't free. I had a choice: pay for her final 6 months of dignity or keep paying Madison's tuition without disruption. I chose Madison. I always chose Madison. My mother died in a county facility while I was cleaning toilets in a downtown high-rise, trying to make enough to cover both their bills. I made it to her bedside 2 hours too late. Madison was taking finals. I didn't tell her until after graduation. Didn't want to ruin her focus. She cried for an afternoon and went back to studying for the bar exam. The bank took the house 8 months later. I moved into the studio in Pilsen. 400 square feet, a hot plate, a futon. Madison was already working at a firm by then, making in a month what I'd made in a year. She never asked why I downsized, never asked why I sold Grandma's house. I never told her I didn't sell it, that it was taken, that I'd traded it, along with my degree, my mother's final comfort, and 20 years of sleep, so she could walk across stages in designer clothes and never know what hunger felt like. My hand shakes harder now as the train slows at Chicago Avenue. The letters in that shoebox aren't just tied to her success. They're the receipt for it. And tonight, Governor Hayes is going to make me decide whether the bill was worth paying.
23 years ago, I stood in a hospital corridor that smelled like antiseptic and something worse. The kind of desperation that clings to fluorescent-lit waiting rooms at 3 in the morning. Madison was 7 years old, asleep in a chair behind me, her head resting on a stuffed rabbit I'd won at the Navy Pier Carnival 2 summers before. She had no idea why we were there. I'd told her we were visiting a friend. I wasn't visiting anyone. I was making a deal with the devil, except the devil wore a decent suit and worked for the state of Illinois. The man across from me wasn't Governor Hayes, not yet. Back then, Thomas Hayes was just a state senator with ambitions bigger than his district, caught in a scandal that would have buried his career before it ever really started. Something about misallocated campaign funds, something about signatures that didn't match, something about a paper trail that led directly back to his office. I knew because I'd seen it. I'd been there. I worked IT support for the firm handling his campaign finances. I wasn't anyone important, just the guy who fixed computers and backed up servers. But when you're invisible, people get careless. They leave browser windows open. They send emails they shouldn't. I found the files by accident, downloaded them by instinct, and when Hayes's people came looking, they found me instead. "Mr. Morrison," the lawyer said, sliding a folder across the plastic table between us, "you seem like a reasonable man, a family man." I looked back at Madison. She'd shifted in her sleep, the rabbit falling to the floor. "We're prepared to make this worth your time. A contribution to your daughter's education fund. A trust that activates when she turns 18. Full ride to any university she qualifies for. Postgraduate funding if needed." I stared at the folder. "What are you asking me to do?" "We're asking you to forget." He opened the folder. Inside was a contract. Below it, a check with more zeros than I'd seen in my life. "Senator Hayes has a bright future ahead of him, Mr. Morrison. He's going to do real good for Illinois, for families like yours, but only if certain administrative errors don't derail everything he's worked for." I should have walked away. Should have grabbed Madison and left. Should have gone to the authorities, the press, someone who cared about justice more than they cared about power. But I looked at my daughter again, 7 years old, wearing shoes with holes in them, already too smart for the underfunded school in our district, and I thought about her future, about the opportunities I'd never had, about the doors that money could open. I signed. The lawyer slid 3 envelopes toward me. "These are for your records. If you ever need anything, if circumstances change, contact this office. Senator Hayes honors his debts." I took the envelopes, never opened them. I'd sold the truth for my daughter's future. And 23 years later, I still don't know if I made the right choice.
The email arrived on a Wednesday afternoon while I was replacing a toner cartridge at the print shop. Subject: Madison Hayes, 30th birthday celebration. Not Dad in the subject line, not even Andrew, just her full name formatted like a corporate merger announcement. I wiped the ink from my hands and read it on my phone, squinting at the small text. "You are cordially invited to celebrate Madison Hayes' milestone birthday, Saturday, October 4th, 7 p.m., the Vertex Lounge, 875 N Michigan Avenue. Cocktail attire required. Please RSVP by September 30th. Terbethany Chen, Executive Assistant to Madison Hayes." Her executive assistant sent my invitation to my own daughter's birthday party? I stared at that email for a long time, long enough that my supervisor, Carl, walked past and asked if I was okay. "Yeah," I lied, "just Stanley stuff." I almost deleted it. Almost convinced myself that showing up would be more painful than staying away. What was I supposed to do there anyway? Stand in the corner of some glass tower while Madison's colleagues talked about billable hours and political strategy? Smile politely while she introduced me as my father, in that tone people use when they're explaining something embarrassing but unavoidable? Ignore him. He's old and tired. Her words from last month still stun like a fresh cut. I decided not to go. I really had. Then Bethany sent a follow-up email that Friday. Update. Governor Thomas Hayes will be delivering remarks at 8:30 p.m. in honor of Madison's achievements and contributions to Illinois policy reform. Press will be present. I read that line 3 times. Governor Thomas Hayes. The name hit me like cold water. I sat down on the curb outside the shop, my phone trembling in my hand, or maybe it was just the tremor again. I couldn't tell anymore. He was going to be there, at my daughter's party. The man I'd buried evidence for 23 years ago. The man whose career I had saved with my silence. The man who'd bought my daughter's future with hush money disguised as a trust fund. Madison had no idea. She thought she'd earned everything herself. The scholarships, the grants, the opportunities. And maybe she had earned some of it. She was brilliant, driven, everything I had hoped she'd become. But the foundation she had built her life on, that came from a deal I made in a hospital corridor while she slept with a stuffed rabbit. I looked up at the Chicago skyline, at the towers that seemed to scrape against the October clouds, and I realized something. Some truths have their own timing. For 23 years, I'd kept quiet, let Hayes build his empire, let Madison build hers. I'd convinced myself that silence was protection, that what she didn't know couldn't hurt her. But now Hayes was standing in front of press cameras at my daughter's birthday party, probably preparing some polished speech about mentorship and integrity and the next generation of Illinois leaders. And suddenly staying silent felt less like protection and more like cowardice. I opened the email again and hit reply. I'll be there.
The elevator to the 42nd floor moves so smoothly I barely feel it rising. Just a soft hum in the LED numbers climbing. 30, 35, 40. Until the doors glide open into a world I don't belong in. The Vertex Lounge looks like something from a magazine I'd never buy. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcase Chicago's skyline lit up against the October night. Crystal chandeliers hang from exposed steel beams. Waiters in black vests drift through clusters of guests carrying trays of champagne that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I step out in my Walmart suit. A woman in a sleek navy dress glances at me, then away, the kind of look that measures your worth in half a second and finds it lacking. I recognize that look. I've been getting it for years. Name? A young man with a tablet guards the entrance like a velvet rope bouncer. Andrew Morrison. He scrolls some more. Oh yes, you're Madison's father? The hesitation tells me everything. He didn't know she had a father, or maybe he knew, but I'd never come up in conversation. Just another piece of her past she'd outgrown. That's me. He checks me off with a stylus. Enjoy the evening. I move into the crowd and immediately feel like a stain on expensive fabric. Everyone here looks assembled. The men in tailored suits that actually fit. The women in dresses that probably have designers I've never heard of. They speak in that confident cadence of people who've never had to choose between electricity and groceries. I spot Madison across the room. She's radiant. There's no other word for it. She wears a gold dress that catches the light, her dark hair styled in waves that probably required an appointment. She's surrounded by a circle of admirers, colleagues, I assume, laughing at something a silver-haired man in a three-piece suit just said. She looks happy, successful, like she belongs exactly where she is.
I wait for her to notice me. She doesn't. I move closer, weaving between conversations about zoning ordinances and upcoming legislation. A waiter offers me champagne. I take it, grateful to have something to do with my hands. "Madison, darling, you've really outdone yourself," a woman in pearls says, air kissing her both cheeks. "Thank you, Diane. I just wanted something intimate, close friends and mentors." Intimate? There must be 80 people here. I'm 10 feet away now, close enough to speak. I clear my throat. "Madison." She turns, and for a split second I see surprise flicker across her face. Then it's gone, replaced by that practiced smile. "Dad, you made it." She doesn't hug me, doesn't step toward me, just acknowledges my presence like I'm a distant acquaintance who happened to show up. "Everyone, this is my father, Andrew." The circle of people nod politely. One man extends his hand. "Nathan Pierce, corporate litigation. You must be very proud." "I am," I say, shaking his hand. His grip is firm, performative. "Dad worked in, what was it, Dad? Printing?" "Print shop, yeah." "How quaint," Diane says, though her tone suggests it's anything but. The conversation shifts immediately back to Madison, a case she just won, her op-ed in the Tribune, her upcoming panel discussion on criminal justice reform. I stand at the edge of the circle, holding my champagne, trying to look like I'm part of something instead of adjacent to it. Then I see him. Across the room, near the windows overlooking Michigan Avenue, stands Governor Thomas Hayes. He's older now, gray at the temples, lines around his eyes, but I'd recognize him anywhere. He's talking to a group of reporters, gesturing with practiced ease, that same charisma that carried him from state senator to governor. He hasn't seen me yet, but he will. Madison touches my arm, the first physical contact of the night. "Dad, can you step aside for a moment? The photographer wants to get some shots of the leadership team." Leadership team. Not family, not my father and me. I move. Of course I move. And as I do, Governor Hayes's eyes sweep the room and land directly on mine. For just a second, his smile falters. He remembers. I find a corner near the bar where I can breathe without feeling like I'm taking up too much space. The bartender, a kid who can't be older than 25, asks what I'm drinking. "Just water, thanks." He pours it into a glass with a lemon wedge, like even hydration needs to be elevated here. From my corner, I watch Madison work the room. She's good at this, moving between groups with ease, laughing at the right moments, touching arms in that way that makes people feel seen. She learned that confidence somewhere along the way, not from me. A cluster of younger professionals, late 20s, sharp suits, hungry eyes, gravitate toward her like she's magnetic. One of them, a blonde woman with statement earrings, raises her glass. "Madison, seriously, how do you do it all? The firm, the advocacy work, the governor's policy council, I barely have time to meal prep." Madison laughs, and it sounds genuine. Almost. "Good coffee and better boundaries, Chelsea. You have to protect your energy from people and things that drain you." They nod like she's delivering gospel. A tall man in wire-framed glasses, probably mid-30s, tech money written all over him, gestures toward me with his whiskey glass. "Hey, Madison, who's the guy over there? He's been watching you for like 10 minutes. Should we be concerned?" The group turns, all eyes on me. My hand tightens around my water glass. Madison glances over, and I see the calculation happen in real time. She could introduce me properly, could say, "That's my father," could walk over and include me, bridge the gap between her world and mine. Instead, she waves dismissively and smiles. "Oh, that's just my dad." She says it lightly, like it's a punchline. "Ignore him. He's old and tired, probably just wants to sit down." The group laughs.
Not cruel laughter, not exactly, just the casual kind. The kind that happens when someone makes a joke at someone else's expense and it lands just right. Chelsea covers her mouth, grinning. Madison, stop! I'm serious, Madison continues, enjoying the momentum. He'll be fine over there. He's not really a party person. Never has been. The tech guy chuckles. Fair enough. My dad's the same way. Dragged him to a startup launch once, and he spent the whole night asking where the exit was. More laughter. Madison raises her glass. To dads who show up even when they don't want to. They toast, they drink. They move on to the next topic. Something about a merger, a case, someone's promotion. I stand there, water glass sweating in my hand, and feel something crack inside my chest. Ignore him. He's old and tired. Not whispered behind my back, not said in frustration during a private moment, said publicly, casually, with a smile, to a room full of strangers who laughed because she made it okay to laugh. I think about the night shifts I worked so she could sleep in a safe apartment, the meals I skipped so she could eat at the college dining hall, the degree I abandoned so hers could hang on a wall. I think about my mother dying 2 hours before I got there because I was working to pay for Madison's bar exam prep course. I think about the deal I made in a hospital corridor 23 years ago, the lie I've carried, the silence I've kept, the man across this room who owes me everything, and my daughter nothing. And I realize something. She doesn't know what I gave up. But she's about to. Because Governor Thomas Hayes is walking toward the stage now, microphone in hand, and the look on his face tells me he's not here just to deliver birthday remarks. He's here because some debts don't stay buried forever. And tonight, the bill comes due.
The room shifts before he even fully enters. It's subtle at first. A change in posture, a turning of heads, conversations trailing off mid-sentence. Then someone near the entrance says, "He's here," and the energy transforms completely. Governor Thomas Hayes walks into the Vertex Lounge like a man who spent his entire life learning how to own a room. He's aged well, the kind of aging that happens to powerful men. Distinguished gray at the temples, lines that suggest wisdom rather than weariness, a suit that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. His smile is warm, practiced, perfect. A small entourage trails behind him. Aides, a photographer, a woman with a tablet who's probably coordinating his next 7 appearances. The crowd parts naturally, instinctively, creating a path. Madison's face lights up in a way I haven't seen all night. She sets down her champagne and moves toward him with purpose, her gold dress catching the light as she weaves through guests. "Governor Hayes." She extends both hands, and he takes them, that campaign trail warmth radiating off him. "Madison." His voice carries across the room, rich, authoritative, genuine sounding. 30 years old and already changing Illinois policy. I remember when you were just an intern fetching coffee. She laughs, and it's different from the laugh she gave her colleagues earlier. This one has admiration in it, maybe even need. "You gave me my first real opportunity, Governor. I wouldn't be here without your mentorship." "Nonsense. You earned every bit of this." He gestures around the room. "Brilliant legal mind, fierce advocate for justice. Illinois is lucky to have you." The photographer captures the moment. Madison beaming, Hayes with his hand on her shoulder in that fatherly way politicians perfect. The image of power passing down, legacy being built. I press myself further back into my corner, hoping the shadows and the crowd will swallow me whole.
But then it happens. Hayes' eyes sweep the room in that way politicians do, cataloging faces, assessing who's important, who needs acknowledgement. It's automatic, a skill honed over decades. His gaze lands on me and stops. The change is microscopic, a fraction of a second where his smile freezes, where something flickers behind his eyes. Recognition, calculation, maybe fear. His hand tightens slightly on Madison's shoulder before he catches himself and relaxes. But I saw it. He knows exactly who I am. 23 years, and he remembers the man who sat across from him in a hospital corridor at 3 a.m. The man who signed papers, the man who buried evidence, the man who made all of this possible. Madison notices his distraction and follows his gaze. Her eyes land on me, then bounce back to Hayes, confused. "Governor, is everything all right?" He recovers smoothly, decades of political training kicking in. "Yes, of course. Just thought I recognized someone." He turns back to her, smile reconstructed. "Now, where's this birthday cake I've heard so much about?" Madison laughs, leading him toward the center of the room, but Hayes glances back at me once more. This time, there's something else in his expression. Not just recognition. A question. "Are you going to say something?" I don't move, don't nod, don't acknowledge him beyond holding his stare for 3 seconds that feel like an eternity. Then he turns away, follows Madison into the crowd, and I'm all alone again in my corner. But the silence between us, the 23 years silence I've kept locked away in envelopes under my bed, suddenly feels fragile, like glass that's been struck, not shattered yet, but already starting to crack. I'm halfway through my second glass of water when I feel a presence beside me. Mr. Morrison. It's not Hayes. It's the woman with the tablet. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, the kind of efficiency that comes from years of managing powerful people's lives. The governor would like a word, privately. My throat goes dry. "I'm fine here." It wasn't a request. Her tone is polite but firm. "There's a conference room down the hall, 5 minutes." She walks away without waiting for my answer. I could leave, could walk out of this party, go back to my studio in Pilsen and let the past stay buried where it belongs. Instead, I follow her. The conference room is smaller than I expected. Glass walls overlooking the city, a table that seats 12, abstract art that probably costs more than my yearly income. The woman ushers me inside and closes the door behind her as she leaves. Governor Hayes stands by the window, hands in his pockets, watching the lights of Chicago stretch toward the horizon. For a long moment, neither of us speaks. 23 years, he finally says, not turning around. You never contacted me, never opened the letters, never asked for anything. I kept my promise. Most men wouldn't have. He turns now, and up close I can see the weight he carries differently than I do. His exhaustion wears expensive cologne. Most men would have shown up years ago asking for favors, reminding me what they owe me. I didn't do it for favors. I know. He steps closer, and I see something in his eyes. Respect, maybe, or guilt disguised as respect. You did it for her, for Madison. Hearing her name in his mouth feels wrong somehow. The trust fund activated when she turned 18, like we agreed. Paid for Yale, grad school, set her up so she'd never struggle the way you... He stops himself. The way some people do. She thinks she earned it all herself. She did earn it. The grades, the internships, the career she's built, that's all Madison. He pauses. But the foundation, The opportunities that put her in position to succeed, those came from our arrangement. Our arrangement. Like it was a business deal. Like it wasn't me trading truth for money in a fluorescent-lit corridor while my 7-year-old daughter slept with a stuffed rabbit. Why am I here, Governor? He exhales slowly. Because I've watched you stand in that corner all night. Watched your daughter dismiss you in front of her colleagues. Watched you take it. His jaw tightens. And I realized something. The debt I owe you, it's not paid. It'll never be paid. Not while she doesn't know what you sacrificed. I can't tell her. Why not? Because it'll destroy everything. She'll look at her entire career and see a lie. She'll hate me for making that deal. She'll hate you for being part of it. And for what? So I can feel acknowledged? So she can know the truth about who her father really is. Hayes moves to the door, his hand on the handle. You've been invisible long enough, Andrew. You carried my shame so I could build a career. You buried evidence that should have ended me. And in return, I gave your daughter opportunities. But I took your voice. That was the deal. It was a bad deal. And I'm about to break it. Governor, it's time she knew, he says quietly. Some debts can't be paid in silence. He walks out, leaving me alone in the conference room with the city lights and the weight of 23 years about to come crashing down. I return to the main room just as someone taps a microphone. The crowd quiets instantly, that Pavlovian response to power about to speak. Glasses are set down, conversations trail off. All eyes turn toward the small stage area where Governor Hayes stands, illuminated by soft overhead lighting that makes him look almost presidential. Madison stands beside him, radiant and proud. "Good evening, everyone." His voice fills the room effortlessly. "I promise I won't take too much time away from this celebration, but I couldn't let tonight pass without saying a few words about an extraordinary woman." Polite applause. Madison smiles, modest but pleased. "I met Madison Hayes 7 years ago when she was a young intern at the state legislature." Hayes turns to her, his expression warm. "She brought me coffee that was somehow always the perfect temperature, asked questions that were smarter than half my staff's proposals, and had this fire in her eyes that told me she wasn't going to stay an intern for long." Laughter ripples through the crowd. "And she didn't. Within 2 years, she'd graduated top of her class from Yale Law, passed the bar on her first attempt, and started building a career that's already changing Illinois policy on criminal justice reform, equitable housing, and civic advocacy." More applause. Madison's colleagues cheer. Someone whistles. I lean against the back wall, my heart pounding in a way that has nothing to do with pride. Madison represents the best of what public service can be. Brilliant, dedicated, uncompromising in her pursuit of justice. He pauses, and something shifts in his tone. "But tonight, I want to talk about something else. Something Madison doesn't know." The room goes quiet. Madison's smile falters slightly, confused. He scans the crowd until his eyes find mine. "There's someone here tonight without whom none of this would exist." 80 pairs of eyes follow his gaze, land on me, the old man in the cheap suit standing against the wall like furniture. Madison's face registers confusion, then something close to horror. "Andrew Morrison," and my name in his voice sounds like a confession. "Madison's father." Murmurs ripple through the crowd. Madison looks at me, then back at Hayes, trying to piece together what's happening. 23 years ago, Andrew Morrison made a choice that required enormous personal sacrifice, a choice that protected not just my career, but created opportunities for his daughter that he knew he could never give her himself. My hands are shaking. Not the tremor, something else. Andrew worked 3 jobs to pay for Madison's education. He lost his home. He gave up his own degree at Northwestern so she could attend Yale. He buried his own dreams so his daughter could chase hers. The room is silent now, completely silent. Madison's eyes are locked on me, wide and uncomprehending. But more than that, Hayes continues, and I want to scream at him to stop, to not say what he's about to say. Andrew kept a secret that saved my career when I made mistakes early on. Mistakes that would have ended everything before it began. He could have exposed me, could have used what he knew for leverage, for money, for power. He pauses, and the silence stretches like breaking glass. Instead, he stayed silent, not because he was weak, not because he was afraid, but because I offered him something he valued more than truth, more than justice, more than his own integrity. He turns fully toward Madison now. I offered you your future. The words land like a bomb in the quiet room. Madison's champagne glass slips from her hand and shatters on the marble floor. No one moves to clean it up.
The shattered glass at Madison's feet catches the chandelier light like fractured stars. Governor Hayes doesn't flinch, doesn't pause. He's committed now, and there's no turning back. I need to tell you all the full story, he says, his voice steady but heavy with something that sounds like decades of guilt finally finding air. Because Madison deserves to know. Because Andrew deserves to be seen. I want to disappear, want the floor to open up and swallow me whole. But I'm frozen against the wall, every eye in the room burning into me. 23 years ago, I was a state senator with ambitions that outpaced my judgment. Hayes' hands gripped the podium. I made errors, financial mismanagement in my campaign, signatures that didn't match donor records, technical violations that, if exposed, would have ended my career and damaged the party I represented. The reporters in the room lean forward. This is the kind of confession that makes headlines. Andrew Morrison worked IT support for the firm managing my campaign finances. He found the discrepancies, downloaded the evidence, and when my legal team approached him, we expected him to demand money, leverage, a payout. Hayes looks directly at me. Instead, he asked about his daughter, about her future, about whether there was a way to ensure she'd never struggle the way he had. Madison's hand covers her mouth. Tears are already streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. So I made him an offer, a trust fund that would activate when Madison turned 18, full funding for undergraduate and graduate education at any institution she qualified for. In exchange, Andrew would misremember certain technical details, would testify, if needed, that data corruption had caused the discrepancies, would bury evidence that could have destroyed me. The room erupts in whispers, shock, judgment. Hayes raises his hand for silence. But that's not the whole story, because 3 years later, Andrew's wife, Madison's mother, Sarah, passed away unexpectedly. She left a small inheritance, $35,000 from a life insurance policy. My throat closes. I hadn't thought about Sarah's life insurance in years. Andrew took that money, the only inheritance his wife left for their daughter's future, and he donated every single dollar to create a state scholarship fund for low-income students pursuing law degrees. Madison makes a sound like she's been punched. He didn't keep a cent. didn't use it to pay off his own debts or save his mother's house. He gave it away because he believed other kids deserved the same opportunities he was buying for Madison. Hayes's voice breaks slightly. And then he signed legal documents taking responsibility for my campaign's errors, documents that could have sent him to prison if the investigation had gone deeper. The whispers have stopped. Now there's only stunned silence. For 23 years, Andrew Morrison worked 3 jobs, lost his home, gave up his education, watched his mother die in a county facility because he couldn't afford better care, and never, not once, asked me for anything beyond what we'd agreed. Hayes reaches behind the podium and pulls out a framed document. Tonight, I'm announcing the creation of the Andrew Morrison Public Service Scholarship. Fully funded by my office and private donors, it will provide complete educational support for children of working-class families who want to pursue careers in law, policy, and public advocacy. The crowd erupts in applause, but I can barely hear it over the roaring in my ears. Madison is staring at me, her face wet with tears, her mouth forming words she can't seem to speak. Hayes crosses the stage and walks directly toward me, the framed certificate in his hands. "This is yours, Andrew," he says quietly, loud enough for the microphone to catch. "Your name, your legacy, not hidden in sealed envelopes under a bed, not buried in silence." He hands me the certificate. At the top, in elegant script, it reads, "The Andrew Morrison Public Service Scholarship, for those who sacrifice in silence so others can speak." My hands shake as I take it, and for the first time in 23 years, I feel seen. The applause continues, but I don't hear it. All I see is Madison. She's standing in the center of the room, frozen like a statue, her gold dress suddenly looking too bright, too celebratory for what this moment has become. Mascara runs in dark tracks down her cheeks, her hands tremble at her sides. Governor Hayes steps back, giving her space, and the applause slowly dies as people realize something is happening, something raw and unscripted that no amount of event planning could have prepared them for. Madison takes a step toward me, then stops. Her mouth opens, closes, opens again. "Dad." The word comes out broken, barely a whisper, but the microphone catches it anyway. The room holds its breath. She presses her palm against her chest like she's trying to hold something inside that's threatening to spill out. "I didn't know. I didn't—" Her voice cracks completely. She covers her face with both hands, and her whole body shudders with a sob that echoes in the terrible silence of 80 people watching a woman break apart. "I called you old and tired." The words come out muffled, anguished. "I told them to ignore you. I made you stand in the corner at my own birthday party like you were nothing." Someone in the crowd shifts uncomfortably. Chelsea, the woman with the statement earrings, looks like she wants to sink into the floor. Madison drops her hands and her face is destroyed, makeup smeared, eyes red and swollen, every carefully constructed piece of her polished image crumbling in real time. "You worked 3 jobs. She's talking to me now, only me, even though everyone's listening. You lost your home, you gave up Northwestern, you let Grandma die in a county facility because you were paying for my law books." "Madison," I start, but she shakes her head violently. No, don't." Her voice rises, raw and desperate. "Don't make excuses for me. Don't protect me from this." She takes 3 steps toward me, glass crunching under her heels. "I spent 7 years thinking I earned everything myself. My scholarship, my opportunities, my career." I laughed.
but it's a horrible sound. I gave interviews about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, about merit and hard work. I wrote an op-ed for self-made success for the Tribune. Her hands are shaking so badly she has to clasp them together. And the whole time, you were living in a studio apartment in Pilsen, wearing a Walmart suit to my events, riding the L while I took Ubers, standing in corners at parties full of people who looked at you like you didn't belong. She's right in front of me now, close enough that I can see every fracture in her expression. I'm so sorry. The words come out as a sob. Dad, I'm so sorry. She collapses against my chest, and I catch her the way I did when she was 7 years old and fell off her bike in Lincoln Park, scraping her knees on the pavement. My arms wrap around her, and she shakes against me, crying the way people cry when something fundamental breaks inside them. The room is completely silent. No one moves. No one speaks. Even the waiters have frozen mid-step. I hold my daughter, 30 years old, successful, brilliant, broken, and I whisper the only thing that matters. I'd do it again. Every bit of it. She cries harder. And somewhere in the crowd, I hear someone else crying too. Then another. Then the silence fills with the sound of people witnessing something too real to look away from. Something true. We stand there in the middle of the Vertex Lounge, surrounded by 80 guests, photographers, the governor of Illinois, but it feels like we're the only two people in the world. Madison's sobs eventually quiet into shaky breaths against my shoulder. Her grip on my jacket loosens slightly, but she doesn't pull away, like she's afraid if she lets go, I'll disappear. I don't deserve this, she whispers. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I pull back just enough to look at her face, makeup ruined, eyes swollen, more real than I've seen her in years. I don't owe you anything, I say quietly. Not gratitude, not guilt, not some performance of appreciation. But Madison. I cup her face in my hands the way I used to when she was little and needed to hear something important. I don't owe you anything but honesty. She blinks, confused. I didn't sacrifice for you so you'd spend your life feeling indebted. I did it because you're my daughter. Because loving you was never a transaction. It was just what I did, what I'd do again. But I was horrible to you. Her voice cracks. I dismissed you, ignored you, made you feel invisible. I know. I treated you like you were embarrassing, like you were old and tired. I finish for her. She winces like the words physically hurt her. And I forgive you, I say simply. Madison stares at me like she didn't hear correctly. How? How? Can you just... Because you're 30 years old, Madison. You're ambitious and driven and trying to build something meaningful. You got caught up in success and forgot where you came from. I brush a tear from her cheek. That doesn't make you a monster. It makes you human. I don't know how to fix this. You don't have to fix it all at once. I smile, and it feels genuine for the first time all night. You just have to try. Be honest. Show up. Not as the perfected daughter trying to make up for something, just as Madison, my daughter. She nods, fresh tears spilling over. I miss you, Dad. I miss you too. She wraps her arms around me again, but this time it's different. Not the obligatory 2-second hug from her Yale graduation. Not the performative embrace for cameras. This is real. Desperate. Grounding. My daughter. Really my daughter. Holding on to me like I matter. and something strange happens. The tremor in my hands, the one that's plagued me for 2 years, the physical manifestation of stress and silence and carrying weight no one acknowledged, stops completely. My hands are steady against her back, steady for the first time in so long I'd forgotten what it felt like. I close my eyes and hold her, and in that moment, surrounded by strangers and broken glass and 23 years of buried truth finally brought to light, I feel something I haven't felt since she was 7 years old. Peace. I love you, Dad, Madison whispers. I love you too, sweetheart. And I mean it. We both do.
4 months later, I'm standing in a community center in Pilsen. Not the Gold Coast, not some glass tower overlooking Lake Michigan, but right here, in my neighborhood, where the streets still smell like tamales from the corner shop and kids play basketball on cracked asphalt courts. Madison stands at a makeshift podium in front of 40 people, community members, students, local organizers, wearing jeans and a blazer instead of a designer dress. Her hair is pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup artists, no photographers from the Tribune, just her. Today, we're launching the Morrison Family Legal Justice Fund, she says, her voice strong but warm. A pro bono initiative providing free legal representation to working families facing eviction, wage theft, and housing discrimination. The crowd applauds. Mrs. Rodriguez from my building is in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. This fund is named after my father, Andrew Morrison, a man who taught me that real justice isn't found in courtrooms or policy papers. It's found in the quiet sacrifices people make when no one's watching. I smile from my seat in the back row. The tremor hasn't returned, not once. My dad worked 3 jobs so I could have opportunities he never got. He gave up his dreams so I could chase mine. And for too long, I didn't see him. I saw his old suit and his tired eyes, but I didn't see his heart. Someone in the crowd murmurs agreement. This fund is my promise that I'll spend the rest of my career seeing people, really seeing them, the way my father saw me, even when I couldn't see him. After the event, we walked to the taqueria 2 blocks from my apartment, our Tuesday tradition now. She insists on paying, but I order the carnitas anyway because they're 50 cents more and it makes her laugh. You're impossible, she says, shaking her head. I'm your father. It's in the job description. We eat at a plastic table under fluorescent lights, talking about her caseload, my new part-time gig at the community college, helping students with financial aid forms, her upcoming trip to Springfield with the governor's policy council. She asks about my mother. Really asks, the way she should have years ago. I tell her stories about Grandma's garden, about the dandelion potions, about the woman who died thinking her granddaughter was too busy to say goodbye. Madison cries quietly over her tacos, and I don't tell her it's okay, because it's not okay, but it's forgiven, and that's different. That night, back in my studio apartment, I finally pull out the shoebox from under my bed. Inside are the 3 letters from Governor Hayes, cream envelopes, embossed seal, 23 years of silence, pressed into paper. I've opened 2 of them over the past months. The first outlined the trust fund details. The second confirmed the scholarship in Sarah's name. Tonight, I open the 3rd. Inside is a single sheet of stationery, the governor's official letterhead, just 5 words written in his own handwriting. Thank you for keeping your word. Below it, a post-it note, newer, added recently. And thank you for teaching me mine still matters. T.H. I fold the letter carefully and place it back in the envelope. Then I do something I haven't done in 23 years. I take the shoebox out from under my bed and put it on my bookshelf, right next to the framed certificate for Madison's party, the photo of us at the taqueria last week, and a drawing she made when she was 8 of the two of us holding hands. Some things don't need to hide anymore. Some truths deserve to stand in the light. I turn off the lamp, and for the first time in decades, I fall asleep without the weight of secrets pressing against my chest. Just peace. Just love. Just the quiet triumph of a man who sacrificed everything and in the end gained back what mattered most. His daughter. So here's my question for you. Was I right to handle it this way? Tell me in the comments below, what would you have done in my position? If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button, subscribe for more real-life tales, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. Because trust me, there's so much more on my channel. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next life story.